Hey folks, this is the My Black Diabetes Meal Plan podcast. I am joined today by Kim Rose, registered dietitian and certified diabetes educator. She's here to help us understand a little bit more about diabetes, particularly for women, and diabetes, particularly for Black women. And so, Kim Rose, how are you feeling today?
Hey, thank you so much, Sean. I am doing well. Thank you for asking. How are you doing?
I'm so great. I'm so great. I saw you on Instagram where you've been able to pull together a following that of people who are really looking out for the kinds of foods that you post, little meals, little nuggets of wisdom, the importance of actually finding a dietitian. It's so critical for a lot of people who are dealing with diabetes. And so, my question is, what's your story? What made you decide to become a registered dietitian, and then to go ahead and stack on the additional education required for becoming a certified diabetes educator?
Okay, I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version here.
Okay.
So, before you begin, let me just say, guys, I'm originally from Jamaica. So, if you hear an accent, that is the Jamaican accent that you are hearing. As much as I try to suppress it, it's just going to be there. So, born in Jamaica, came over here when I was very young, and in my household where, people had diabetes, people had high blood pressure, high cholesterol, we still adhere to the traditional Jamaican diet. And that's not to say that the foods that, my family was cooking for me and themselves were high in sugar or high in starches and carbohydrates. But really, acculturation took place, and we started consuming the standard American diet just a bit more. And because of this, I started seeing, my uncles who are like 15 years older than me, 20, 25 years older than me, become very sick. So I always grew up with the ideology that I was going to be a nurse. I really didn't want to stay in school so long to be a doctor, guys. That just really wasn't me. No pun intended, Sean, because I know you have your PhD. No. But, I wanted to go to school and basically do something that will allow me to quickly be able to give back to my community in some way or another. So while I was in school, first I thought I was going to be a physical therapist, and then it was a doctor, it was a nurse. You go through all of these different avenues. And then I started realizing, well, food is a common denominator. I don't care if you're the Queen of England. I don't care if you're living on the streets. Our body, one of our basic functions is to eat. Our cells need to be fed. So I realized that food is really bipartisan, that you need it in order to survive. So I started taking a lot of nutrition classes. I went to Florida State University, so I started taking a lot of nutrition classes there. And I realized in the class, I was the only Black girl. Some classes, hey, there were two of us in there.
No.
And it was very interesting, very interesting. So I started talking to my undergraduate professor, and I was like, well, I'm not really sure if I want to be a dietitian. And she was like, are you kidding me? You're Black. And I didn't understand what she was talking about, but I appreciate her for being bold and telling me that. So then I started looking up some statistics. And at the time I realized, and it's still current to this day, that Black dietitians only make up about 5% of the profession. And I was like, what? I'm a unicorn? Like, okay. So I realized that, and even looking at studies, people respond better to a provider who looks like them. So even though I'm Black, that does not mean that I cannot speak to someone who is Caucasian or someone who is Hispanic or of Asian descent, people of color.
Sure.
So I decided, you know what, let me get into this space, let me get into this realm. And that is my trajectory into becoming involved in dietetics. Now, when it comes to diabetes, the way that I got involved with diabetes is there's actually a doctor here in the community, and he's of Indian descent. And he challenged me. He was like, okay, Kim, I'm seeing a lot of people who have uncontrolled diabetes. What are you going to do about it? Because where I live, there were 8 dietitians at the time. Now there's only about 5 of us that are practicing because the other people have retired. So he really challenged me to, sit down, learn the medications, take the exam, and this is where I am. And, I can see how that has made a difference in my family. Unfortunately, one of my uncles, due to uncontrolled diabetes, ended up with kidney issues, and he passed away as a result he was like 52, extremely young. And, just now changing the way that my family eats, including more non-starchy vegetables, and the cultural competency, or not even competency, but keeping that cultural integrity of the foods is important, because you can't tell someone, oh, go ahead and eat asparagus when they've never had asparagus in their life. It's really about educating them in the culture. These are the foods which contain starches. These are the healthy fats. These are the foods which are non-starchy. And this is what your plate needs to look like to make sure that you're getting an adequate nutrition. So that's the Cliff Notes version, actually.
Okay. Okay. So basically, when you decided, yes, registered dietitian made a lot of sense when you figured that food was at the cornerstone of any health initiative, any type of health practitioner or health expert has to understand what we're putting in our bodies, because what we put in our bodies determines how we show up when we show up to the physician, when we show up to the ophthalmologist, when we show up to a lot of our mental health experts. It's going to have an influence. And so we want to make sure, it sounded like you wanted to make sure that you got that part right. Since it's set at the nexus of all these different other issues. But then when it came to the CDE, was that when you were talking about the Indian gentleman, that was when he decided that he basically put it on you and said, look, there's all these folks with diabetes. I want you to show me what you're willing to do to serve.
Exactly.
That's when you went out and got that extra cert. And so that's one thing I really wanted to make sure people understood, because when it comes to Black women dealing with diabetes, we're really fighting against food injustice. And can you talk a little bit about how food injustice, redlining, the 99-cent menu have contributed to higher rates of diabetic disease in our community, in the Black community?
Sure, definitely. So let me say this. Let me say, guys, that the 99-cent menu, and you're just going to get the raw and real and unfiltered Kim. The 99-cent menu is lit, y'all. It's lit. Why it's lit? Because there has been numerous clients and numerous patients that have come to me and said, Kim, I can't afford to buy a bag of apples. I can't afford to buy a head of iceberg lettuce, but I can afford to spend $3 for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and go to that 99-cent menu. It's lit because it's actually lighting a fire under your health and making your health even worse. So it's lit in a very negative aspect. So, when I look at food justice, one of the things that I look at a lot, especially I work in healthcare, I'm in the hospital, I'm seeing the disparities. And to be honest with you, I'm not ashamed to say this. When someone comes in the hospital and they are a person of color, I treat people of color and I treat people that are Caucasian the same way. But if it's a person of color and they tell me, I don't know what medications I'm on, the doctor just told me to take this blue little pill. I said, what you mean blue little pill? Like what do you mean? And I do that as a form of empowering them to realize that the system is against us. It's against us as people of color. It likes to keep us mentally crippled. It likes to keep us educationally crippled. PhD, Sean. Boop, boop. It likes to keep us crippled and ignorant in order to make us sicker. And we die, and as a result, we die sooner than our counterparts. So especially for women of color, there's a few things that I want us to realize. I want us to realize that, and Sean, you can go ahead and edit this out.
Okay. All right.
I want women of color to realize that we are the most disliked group of humans. I can't speak for other nations within the United States. We're disliked. And we can see that in the history of racism within this country. And because we are disliked, because they push us into certain zip codes that do not have fully fledged grocery stores and do not offer produce, as a result, something happens that's called epigenetics. And basically what epigenetics is, it's when we are stressed, our genes turn on a certain cascade of events that makes us more predisposed to heart issues, makes us more predisposed to high blood sugar issues, makes us more predisposed to high blood pressure issues. And because of that, we, as mothers of the generation, we are supposed to, be teaching our families, our sons, our daughters, we're the homemakers, how to eat properly. But instead, we can't do that. Instead, we have to rely on what's afforded to us in the communities where we live. And that's a form of food injustice. So something that I like to do in my practice is I like to first educate on how the system is just against you. And the system is against us regarding BMI as well, body mass index, which I'm not going to get into because that's another story for another time. But really, it's the savvy, I was taking a trip, Sean, and I was passing through, I think it was Kentucky. I was on my way to Chicago and I got lost in Kentucky. And I ended up in the quote unquote hood. And I was just looking and I was like, okay, there's a Popeyes. Right across the street, there's a McDonald's. Then you see a Burger King. Then you see a Wendy's. And I'm like, where's the grocery store? Because I wanted to go to the grocery store. I wanted to get some fruits on my journey. And I could not find any type of fruit. So, I say that all to say that it's really up to us to take our health in our own hands, to increase. And something else you find out about me, every single client that I speak to, it doesn't matter what type of chronic issue they have, I'm always telling them, you guys need to increase plants in your diet, more plants, more fruits, more vegetables, more grains, more legumes, because this is protective for us. So especially with women, we're more prone, Black women, to cardiac issues. And if you have diabetes, you're more likely to have cardiac issues as well. So it's really about recognizing that the system is not for you, that the zip codes that they have pushed us in is going to make us sick and make us die sooner. So it's really important for us to control what we can. We can't control our stress, but we can control the type of nutrients which we put into our bodies, which will impact whether that gene turns on or off based on a cascade of events. So it's a whole myriad of things, Sean.
That's so brilliant, and it's taken the way that we think about food to another level, because I think what can happen is we think that food is just about calories in, calories out. But if I'm hearing you correctly, it also sounds like there is an epigenetic factor, which is to say that the things that we eat influence the kind of genes that are on and running, the kind of scripts that are running inside of our bodies. And we can turn on scripts that are unhealthy for us, that might take us in a negative direction, that might make us more prone to type 2 diabetes, that might make us more prone to hypertension. Or we can use food to turn off those scripts, to ameliorate those scripts, to make sure that we're protecting ourselves from type 2 diabetes, protecting ourselves from hypertension. That's a brilliant way to look at how we're eating. And the average person who was just diagnosed has not encountered that kind of information before. I wanted to make sure that people heard that information from you. And, it brings me right to my next question here, which is, what are the dietary changes that you would often recommend for people who are dealing with diabetes? Because a lot of folks think that fruit is off limits. They're like, oh man, just recently diagnosed. Oh, gotta give up the grapes, gotta give up the berries, gotta give up gotta give up carbs altogether. People think fruit is off limits because of the carbs and sugar. One, is that true? And two, is there sort of a recommended way to think about how many carbs a person should have, generally speaking?
So to go ahead and answer that first question, that's a fallacy that you have to give up fruits. And I've heard it many a times like, oh, I can't eat the banana. I can't eat the pineapple. I'm from Jamaica, so, oh, I can't have the mango.
Oh,
That is that's a total fallacy. One thing that we need to remember is fruits have different nutrients in them. They have your vitamins and they have your minerals. So I go from a food first approach. So instead of taking like a multivitamin, I say, well, hey, if you need to increase your vitamin A, if you need to increase your chromium, which can definitely help with blood sugar regulation, then these are the different types of plant-based foods that you would want to try. So I do not, something that I like to tell people, anything that, and I don't want to get religious, y'all don't want me preaching today, but anything quote unquote God made, it is okay. The problem becomes when we get into those highly processed, highly refined foods. So case in point, pizza versus whole grain bread, or you'll have fruits versus fruit roll-ups or Fruit Loops. Definitely default to the more natural one, because of course there's different things in there that the body can benefit from. So the second part of the question, when you asked, is there the amount? So for each individual person, it's a little different because I'm taking into consideration activity level. I'm taking into consideration age. I'm taking into consideration gender even, and also the times that you eat. So when someone comes to me for, it's called a nutrition prescription, I look at all of those factors. And depending on what our goals are, if you want to lose weight, or if you want to improve kidney function with that, or if you want to reduce your risk of cardiovascular issues, then I may give them a nutrition prescription that says, hey, have 2 carbohydrate servings at each meal, or 3, depending on who they are, their schedule, their needs, their energy expenditure. So there's a whole myriad of different things that goes in there. So it's not really a one size fits all approach, but I would definitely need to look at all of those factors.
Okay, perfect. Because if I'm hearing you correctly, it sounds like you're saying that you can eat the fruits, folks. You can eat the fruits. You can have the fruits. The carbohydrate is not off limits. What we're actually focused on more is making sure you're getting the quality carbohydrates that are fit for your appropriate BMI, body mass index, but also your total daily energy expenditure, right? Your age, your height, and the rest of your nutrition portfolio, your nutrition profile, right? We want to make sure that each person is getting adequate nutrition and adequate carbohydrates. You cannot have a complete meal plan or meal solution without having carbohydrates, because carbohydrates give us they give us our energy. We just want to make sure those carbohydrates are of the divine kind, right? The ones that God made, the ones that come with phytochemicals, phytonutrients, and that are also going to be infused with plenty of fiber as well. And so I know that we're running out of time, and I can hear people like, wanting you to stay on more. I know that's going to already be a thing. So I'll go ahead and start to wind it down. One of the things that I'm always thinking about is what happens if someone was made to believe that because they're Black, there is no, and because type 2 diabetes ran in their family, it's inevitable for them, right? If people are kind of falling into that hopeless phase, that hopeless stage, I like to end all the interviews with a little bit of just uplift. I wonder what would be the thing that you would say when someone is just recently diagnosed, feels overwhelmed, and feels like there is no way out of this situation, feels like their sugars are always going to be out of control, and that there's nothing that they can do personally. There's nothing that they can do. There's no one that they can work with. What do you say to that individual to course correct, to offer just a little bit of encouragement to them?
So the first thing that I like to say is that's the devil.
Mm,
That's the devil right there telling you that you can't, that you're going to stay stuck in your situation, that you're going to be sick. Um, Another thing that I like to do is share with them my story. As I told you, type 2 diabetes runs in my family, but heredity loads the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger.
mm.
So you definitely prevent that trigger from being pulled. 14 years ago, I decided to go on a plant-based diet, and my family thought I was absolutely nuts. I mean, come on, we're Jamaican. We eat goat,
Sure,
curry goat,
sure,
jerk chicken,
sure.
you know. But now I have, if I may use this term in the proper context, converted my family to a plant-based diet. So there's numerous studies out there showing that, increasing plants into your diet can help you to manage and even put your type 2 diabetes into remission. If you don't know where to start, the best place to start, I always tell people, include some fruits at breakfast,
Mm.
include at your lunch and dinner.
What
Try
kind
to
of
reduce.
fruits? What kind of fruits would you include at breakfast?
So definitely, I like to stick to the berries and the melons. The
Mm.
berries and the melons are a good start. They're refreshing. They're filled with antioxidants, which help to protect your body from cell destruction. And they pair well. They pair well with any type of breakfast, and they're full of fluid. So I like to start with the berries and the melons first. And then also have a salad with the meals. Something that I like to say as well is instead of having your meat to be the main entree, because some people just aren't there yet. I have to honor their process where they are. Have the salads and the plant-based foods such as beans and whole grains to be the overwhelming majority of their meals.
Mm.
Something that I like to say as well is be careful of your beverages. Soda, ooh, you see, I don't tell people to get off of any food, but soda, get off of it.
Okay.
A huge culprit. It's actually liquid sugar.
Mm.
Soda is not the way to go. So those are really the first basic steps. And to be honest with you, for people, it's not easy because truth be told, sugar addictions
Yep.
exist. Fat addictions, they exist. So something that I like to tell people from beforehand is be mindful that you're going to have a sugar craving. Be mindful that, hey, you're going to crave that piece of bacon. It's going to happen. I'm telling you, but you got to fortify your mind. You have me preaching today. You got to fortify your mind against these things because in order to be healthy, it's actually a conscious decision. We have to say to ourselves, we can't give in to our desires for that donut. I've had donut desires when I'm stressed out, when there's a rough day at the job. But you know what? I say, instead I'm going to have nature's candy. I'm going to eat a
Mm.
piece of fruit.
Mm.
So just increasing more fruits and vegetables because the average American doesn't get enough fruits and vegetables as is. That's definitely the way to start.
Wow. Wow. I'm going to have nature's candy. And there's so much wisdom when you said that, Kim, because it's like the sugar that we're looking for in the donut, in the soda, in the processed store candy, in a Snickers bar or Kit Kat, the sugar that we're looking for in those foods, it exists in the right amount, that's healthy for us, in the fruits and vegetables that God made. Right? It already exists in the fruits and vegetables that God made. And so it's like, let's just eat those, because when we eat those types of fruits and vegetables, and we eat those types of sugars, we're not just getting sugar, right? We're not just getting the processed stuff. We're also getting a wave of vital vitamins that can actually help us and heal us. And so, oh my gosh, that's such a nature's candy. That's the candy I like.
Yeah,
But then also being mindful that, hey, look, you're going to have a sugar craving. There's a reason that McDonald's does billions and billions of dollars a year. It's because they figured out how to hack
right.
your taste buds and your brain, your cravings.
Mm-hmm.
And they figured out how to basically make their food, their cheeseburgers, their French fries like cocaine, like crack, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
you know that you're going to be dealing with an addiction. So be gentle with yourself. It's okay to go slow at first. We're not asking for anybody to be perfect, only saying just begin, right? Just get
Mm-hmm.
started. Just get started, right? And
Right.
so Kim, I thank you so much for jumping on this podcast. I think I've had an amazing time. I kind of wish we could go for a little bit longer, but I know it's time to end. I'd like to have you back. I'd like to get you back and perhaps even do a live session where folks can ask their
Yeah.
questions in real time. I think that would be pretty powerful. Um,
Nice.
and so I'm gonna go ahead and actually absolutely end it right there. This has been the My Black Diabetes Meal Plan podcast, and our website, My Black Diabetes Meal Plan, is the place where we want to be able to help folks actually address the issue of not knowing what to eat. And so you can head over to myblackdiabetesmealplan.com in order to take an assessment and get started. And so, Kim, we will do this again. I can't wait to see how people respond in the comments in our group. And I just thank you once again for coming on the show
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
so much.
Bye-bye.